Okay, so we're ready to start sewing our signatures together. So what you want to do, even though we grouped them separately, we're actually going to be stacking all of these on top of each other. If the T's and the B's that you drew are going to bother you inside your sketchbook, you know, you can erase them now or erase them later might be better, just so we don't get confused. But what you're going to do is stack the pages really well, just like you did before, just to make sure that all of the holes that we poked before are going to be lined up exactly and we won't have any trouble. And then the next piece of equipment that you're going to need, you want to pinch this really well at the top, is a binder clip. So you want to make sure that your pages aren't moving while you're sewing. So the binder clips really come in handy for that. So what I like to do is I put it on one side at the top and then I put it on the other side at the bottom. And I kind of bend my pages just to make sure after I stack them that everything really is in line and I'm not going to have any trouble when I'm sewing. Okay. So I'm clipping my pages together. Everything looks good. So this is what I've got going here. So the next thing you need is some thread. My cover is kind of a purpley greeny color, so I'm gonna pick purple thread, but you can really pick any color, it doesn't matter. And what I want to do is stretch out my thread to see, make sure that it's going to be a little bit longer than twice as long as the paper. So I'm going to unwind it, struggling. I'm going to unwind it and just make sure that it's a little bit longer than twice the length of the pages, and then I can snip it. And then this is where the wax comes in. So you might be wondering why we need wax. This is kind of weird. But actually wax really helps a lot when you're sewing pages together. You want to run the thread along the wax. It kind of makes a groove in the wax. That's okay. The wax helps the thread to kind of be more sturdy. It keeps it from snapping while you're pulling on it, because you want to pull the thread pretty tight. Also, the wax helps when you are tying your knot at the end of the thread. It helps the knot to kind of stick because the wax is sticky, and it just keeps everything nice and secure. So you're just going to run the wax along the thread a few times. You know, if you feel like it's pretty coated, then that's good enough. I did mine, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and it just makes it more sturdy. So my thread is nice and waxed, so now I'm going to thread my needle. These needles have pretty big eyes. The hole in the end of the needle is called the eye, and you shouldn't have any trouble threading these needles. But in case you do, a little trick is to put the thread, I don't know how well you can see that in this light, but put the thread between the fingertip and the thumb tip so that just a little bit of the thread is showing, and then you just slide the eye of the needle right over the thread, and then it's threaded. But you should also just be able to kind of take the thread and kind of poke it through the needle. If it seems like it's coming unraveled, then smooth it out a little bit. You could even run it back through the wax to help with that. That's another handy part of having the wax. And then you should be able to just poke it right through, just like I did. I don't know if you guys could see that. This lighting isn't great, but you should be able to thread it, no problem. So I've forgotten to do this so many times, but the most important thing you need to do before you start sewing is to tie a knot in the end of your thread. And you want to leave a little tail long enough so that you can tie another knot with it when you're done. You don't want to only have like that much left. You want to have about that much at the end of your tail. So you want to make a little loop like this, and then you can pinch where it crosses. You can pinch and then bring the thread back around. Let me put this over the paper so you can see better. So you want to make a loop and then pinch where it crosses, and then take that end of the thread up and under and then through the loop like that, and then pull on it, and there's your knot. And if you can do that twice, like if you can loop the thread through that hole and then loop it around again, it'll make a bigger knot, which will be better. It won't pull through as easily. I just messed up, of course. I always mess up when I'm on camera. Whatever, we'll figure it out. It'll work. All right, there we go. We have a pretty good size knot. You can see it's not going to go through the holes in our pages. So now what you want to do, you don't want to start on the inside. You actually need to start on the outside. So you just want to put your needle through and start sewing. So you want to be careful when you're, oh, you couldn't see any of that. Oops. You want to come from the back and put the needle through, and then you want to make sure that you're not going to stab yourself, obviously, and then just start pulling it through. So you want to come up and then go down through the next set of holes, and then pull the needle through. When you're pulling on the needle, you want to kind of close your fingers around the tail of the thread so that your needle doesn't start to pull off like this. So if you close your fist, then you won't have that issue. So you're just going to keep going up and down through the holes in your sketchbook. And you want to give it a good tug every time you go through one set of the holes. Now, you are going through 15 pages of paper, so it might not be really easy. You might have to put some pressure on that needle, but if you do line the pages up when you are making the dots the way that I showed you, they should line up exactly and you shouldn't have much of a problem. Okay, so now we're going to go back the other direction, and you're going to go through the same hole that you went through before, but this way it will get wound around in the blank areas. So I'm giving this a good tug. You don't want to yank so tight that you're going to tear the paper, obviously, but you don't want your pages to be loose in your book, so that's why you want to give it a good tug every time you go through. So I'm putting the needle through, and then I'm turning it over, obviously, to pull on it. It just makes it easier. If your thread doubles up like that, you want to tug on it and then kind of pull on your needle so that you have a little bit more to work with. All right, so this is where you needed that extra bit, because for this last little gap here, you're going to tie these two ends together. So I'm going to take the needle off, you don't need it anymore, and give one last good tug on this just to make sure that my binding is as tight as I can get it without tearing the pages. And then you want to make a square knot, which just means you're gonna tie it and then tie it again. So for a square knot, you only need to do that twice, but I like doing it 3 or 4 times just to make sure that it's extra secure. And that's where the wax comes into. The wax really helps make sure that the knot sticks and it doesn't sort of fray apart when you trim the edges of your string. So now I'm done with the binding and I can trim off this extra. I don't want to cut it right on the knot. I'm gonna leave it so that I've got maybe 1/4 or 1/2 of an inch extra thread here. If you cut it right on the knot, then it's gonna come loose. So you want to leave that little bit of extra. Now I can take off my binder clips and close my pages, and you can give it one last good crease. Now you can see that because there's so many pages, when you close it, they're not exactly even. So what I'm going to do is trim all of the pages on my paper cutter so that they will look like this. I don't know if in this lighting you can see the difference, but with this it's all straight, and with this you can kind of see the pages in the middle are sticking out a little bit more. So when you trim the pages, it really makes it look nice and finished. So the last step that we're going to do is to take our nice finished pages and glue them in the inside cover here. And when I stack this all together, you can see that my pages aren't hanging out, and it will be a nice, fabulous, finished sketchbook that will last and be really nice to use for this semester. So we will see that in the next video.